Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another action-packed, exciting, and information-filled episode of the Imperium Insider, where today we will be discussing the unit support staff. And obvious first question for that would be, what is the unit support staff?
I don't know.
No, I don't know.
No, Dupsums doesn't know. He actually helped write some of the rules, but he doesn't know.
And then he got taken off it.
Shut up. The unit system is Imperium's answer and plan and procedures for helping players that organically form groups and niches within the organization to be integrated within the structure, as well as then be used in a efficient way for the org to hopefully work together as a team. That's my best attempt, anyways.
So that's the units, but then you have this unit support staff, and that's...
Oh, you're talking about support staff? I don't listen to you half the time.
I understand.
Might have something to do with that slightly skewed headset.
I think I did that last Insider too.
Earpiece.
So the support staff is something that was part of the revamped unit system that me and Nazareth helped make. And the purpose of the unit support staff is basically it's a team of individuals and members of Imperium, ranging from anywhere from officers to regular members who would like to do it. And their whole goal is to, just like the name says, support the unit system and the units. That includes things like being a helping hand, helping units form, identifying issues or problems that maybe the unit is dealing with. Also making sure that the units are keeping up with the current and ever-evolving standards and procedures that a lot of times Imperium has to constantly rewrite. Because just like the unit system, and just like Imperium, and just like SIG, we're moving just at the pace of the game. So the support staff is there to help bridge that communication gap, which I think in the past we were lacking between the hierarchy of Imperium, from subcommanders and officers down to the member base. And that support staff is there to help bridge that communication and hopefully help the unit system grow and become more productive and smooth.
I like Dupsum's answer. I probably just add a little bit to that. We draw our membership from both officers and the general populace, but all members of the unit support staff are considered specialists. So I don't want to.
What kind of specialists? Like, what do we call them, though? They're not.
They're called they're unit support staff. That's really what they are.
Called unit specialists. Is really individually that's what they're referred to, but the group of them are referred to as the support staff.
Correct.
So without dragging this out into territory that it doesn't need to go, can somebody, preferably Core, can you give us a little history on how we actually got to the current structure of units?
How we got to the current structure of units.
You want the long answer or the short answer?
The short answer, please. Because this could be a 3-hour video just on that alone.
The compounded answer is someone conceived the idea to allow members to create units without rules.
But they were called something else at that time, right?
They were called squadrons at the time. And this was a half-assed idea that was pushed out way too quick. There was barely any planning or thought into how that system was going to work. And it literally was an idea that came down to, let's give the people something to do. This, of course, led to a very long year of, once the cat's out of the fucking bag,
right.
To a very long year of playing fucking balancing act and literally testing out what did and didn't work. And unfortunately, that caused a lot of friction between the leadership and between the unit or squadron leaders at the time. And even at times between squadron members, because you'd basically have us, or at least the the perception of Imperium telling you what to do on your own squadrons. Now, the perception that also formed from the perspective of the squadron leaders was that they would have full autonomy. because of the lack of rules and because of the lack of structure. And they do not even close. They don't even have a little bit of full autonomy. However, when it comes to these people coming together and wanting to do an activity together, we want to put the framework in place to allow that to be as easy and accessible as possible, and that's why the unit system exists, so that you can say what you're a part of, say which group you want to belong to, and then get together as a group to do these activities. But there's no actual rank in these units. That was never the idea. However, of course, over the years, people thought that there was. Anyway, fast forward to a couple of months ago. Actually, I think it was close to a year ago. Hell, I think it was almost a year ago now.
Almost a year.
Year and a half ago, almost. Sorry. We decided to rebrand and relaunch it as the unit system. However, again, the frictions persisted from the old days where unit leaders and perhaps jilted squadron members still feel like we are encroaching on their territory. The truth is we aren't, but we're trying to make sure that all units are as uniform and as streamlined as possible. And that's why we're here. As long as you don't break the rules, and we're going to help you, and hopefully you're going to help us realize how we can make the system better. The unit support staff is there specifically with that role in mind, to bridge the gap between the officership, leadership, and the unit leaders and the unit members, just to make sure that there is at least amount of friction, and that when we approach them, that the unit support staff can approach them from the perspective that we're only there to help and make sure that they understand how the system is supposed to work, and what changes they would have to facilitate in order to make the transition into that system as fluid as possible.
Yeah, I think part of that, to add to that context, is I think in the past, a lot of times squadrons, when Imperium or leadership ended up approaching them, it was like a baseball bat coming down on their head, where like it was just a no, 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 and they weren't ready for it. Whereas with the USS, because that communication is much more fluid and hopefully happening on a more consistent basis, they're kind of they help to not only kind of explain the point from where leadership is coming, but also to inform the units ahead of time, like, hey, this is something you may want to focus on because this could potentially lead to something, as opposed to it potentially leading to something first and then something coming down. And that's the last thing that USS or leadership ever wants to do, is come down on units for breaking rules. It's always, we'll talk to you, and we're going to always give the units, or core and the leadership is always going to give the units the benefit of the doubt, because we're here to support you guys, not tear you down.
The idea also, it has something to do with the fact that the USS themselves will never really hand out punishments or rein in punishments on a unit. What they will do is they'll make sure that the unit tries to adjust and give advice and support and try to understand why unit leaders are making the decisions that they are making, and what they're posting and how they want to convey it, because a lot of the times it's also a lot of miscommunication, because we see one thing yet are being told something else, and stuff like that causes friction as well. But 98% of the time, the USS is only there to make sure that the units will function within the system as efficiently as possible.
For sure, we are not the Spanish Inquisition.
No Inquisition.
No, that's HR.
That's HR.
No one expects a Spanish Inquisition.
All right.
I'm glad the HR is here, so they can't rebuttal.
No,
Well,
but
Technically, HR is here, but
but going back to the very first question, I think that kind of gets to the focus or the core of what the USS is. It is a communications conduit between units and Imperium leadership. And I think that's the biggest difference between the USS and what has gone before, is because, oftentimes there was this conflict between unit leaders, whether they call themselves squadron leaders or, whatever ranks they gave themselves, and the Imperium leadership, not out of any
Malice.
Malice, yeah. Thank you, Doopsums. Not out of any malice, but because they didn't necessarily know what the rules and the expectations were. And all it would happen is that, things would start to go wrong slowly because of a series of like miscommunications or whatever, and it would build and build and build and would snowball into this big thing until when leadership had to step in, it became a problem. With the USS in place, we have this communications conduit, and it's important to say that the USS isn't there to tell you what you're doing wrong. I mean, it'll explain the rules and help you find a way to work within them, but it's also there to tell you what you're doing right. And I think that's an important distinction. It's to help you find a way to work within the system and to do better, not just to step in when things are going wrong.
Vince, did you hear that? You're not even a person anymore. You're an it. So we're just considering you an object.
So, with all that being
That's
said,
what I meant. Thanks, dude.
right under the bus. So, with all that being said, can someone speak to what units mean to members and what they mean to Imperium, because they're probably intertwined a little bit, but not entirely.
If I can take it up
Yeah.
about.
All yours.
In reality, what a unit means to a member is a close group of like-minded individuals with common goals. Friends maybe, but okay. In gaming, when you're calling friends, you are talking about someone you can trust, you have same schedule, same interest, same play style, or supporting play style at least, which in the end, it creates what is the unit right now. But for Imperium, actually, there is a slight problem there. There's a small issue there. The thing is, a lot of units misunderstood what a resource of a unit it really is. A lot of people thinking about ships, or I have 20, 30 people in my unit. But in reality, their best resource is their active members, which actually are the Imperium's best resource. And that creates the unit as, I suppose, one of the best more resources for Imperium, considering that it would be really organized and punctual in most cases, but until the game will be out, then we would know for sure.
So the overarching idea of the unit is to allow members to organize amongst themselves so that they can participate in a particular game style.
Think of it as like, if if the game is the NFL, right? We're like Imperium is like Imperium is like the American League, right? We all house all these different teams, right? And we're all part of the same organization, which is the NFL. And all those different teams are like units, except that instead of those units playing each other, those units are all going against the other conference. Which, if you don't follow sports, that probably did nothing to help your understanding. But
if you would have used
NFL,
European football as an example, which I know you don't understand, it probably would have went a bit further.
I probably should have did that.
Does that make Gallatin Goodall?
Oh,
yeah, Gallatin is the Iron Fist, except he's not the Iron Fist. He's nicer than Goodell. I think. I don't know. Does he exist? Did we ever get him on an Insider yet?
No, he's busy building a house, actually.
He never has time on the weekend, and we always try to do these things on the fucking weekend because most of you plebs can't do it during the week. So
It's called real life and jobs and
jobs. What's that?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to say anything about Greece right now.
I was going to say there's a Greece joke coming. I knew it.
Because in the States, I actually have a job. But
what is job? I no understand.
I literally am going to be late to work today to do this episode. So
it's okay.
Dedication.
But he asked in advance, so
I did.
That's good. That's good.
He informed his boss, at least.
Yeah, he's a good little slave to the system.
Or did I?
Or did he? Yep. Well, that's what happened with CitizenCon at one point, isn't it?
Shut
anyways, so then, since the units are created to give members the opportunity to gather amongst themselves, like you said, with like-minded individuals with a like
play schedule.
Goal
and
all these things that make it possible for them to play the game at the same time, how does Imperium see that playing into the greater perspective of the organization? I think we discussed this at one point before, But just give me the TLDR of that really quick.
I think that's probably gonna be Arcanus's baby.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of the big thing is that units are kind of like a critical building block of missions. You know, it does no good for operations to create a mission to go out and, you know, take on a particular goal, whether it be a trade convoy or, you know, intercepting pirates in a asteroid field or whatever. It does us no good to create this mission if there's nobody to perform it. And so, you know, I'm just sitting here gesturing with my hands. Nobody can see that.
Yeah, we can. We can see all of it.
Oh, okay. Oh, excellent.
Put your hands up.
Yeah, just put them up.
There you go.
But anyhow, so the idea is that, you know, we can create a mission, just do it with individuals, but that's going to be kind of slow and clunky. Units are a way of organizing people into, you know, as has been previously stated, interests. People who are interested in a particular play style.
They're like 4 steps ahead already.
Yeah, exactly. They are, you know, they're collections of people interested in a particular type of mission or style already grouped together for us so that we can contact and say, hey, you know, would you like to go out and take on this mission for us because there are these pirates that are attacking a convoy, or there's this trade convoy that needs to get through. And it really helps operations accomplish Imperium's goals. So, you know, in an ideal world, Core or somebody from Fleet Command comes down and says, hey, we need this. Operations goes, okay, let's create a mission to to achieve this goal. And, you know, we then turn around and contact a unit to take on the mission to go out and do it.
I think it's important to note too, right, is a lot of people, and I've seen this question get brought up a lot when I was really heavily involved with the USS, is like, what's the point of even having the units? It's really the basis of what the mission system is based around the individual member. And truthfully, in the way that we have it set up is, technically speaking and theoretically based off the plans and how we're developing it, is if the units never existed, right, everything would still run the same in theory, right? So I guess the question in practice it would.
Because the idea is that, okay, so the mission system has a little bit more to it. It's that the idea behind it is that you as an individual can sign up for a mission, right? That's the basis of the entire project. Now, if you get comfortable with a group of people and they happen to have a unit, or you form a unit with those people, you make everything slightly easier for yourself because you can sign up as a unit. You know who you can rely on. You know who you're playing with. You know what your style is. And it just makes your life easier. That's why they exist. But
And to add to that, what then ends up happening, and this is something that we need SIG's help on, is we don't know, you know, how many people a regular escort mission could take, or a, you know, exploration convoy, or whatever the case, you know, to where even if you do sign up for a mission as a unit, there'll probably still be slots, at least we hope, based off of the scale of the game, to where you'll then get individual members that spread into it, you know, and then obviously based off of missions, maybe there's smaller missions where we need a more dedicated unit that's more cohesive and trustworthy, or whatever, or there could be a mission where we only need one guy, you know, and you can't sign up for a mission for one guy if it's a really high info thing, and then it's anybody's guess. So it's very broad how the mission system can play into who can sign up for what, but the general idea is that that opportunity is going to be available for everybody, and the key difference is how do you distinguish yourself as a member to make your chances more likely? And how that plays into units is, obviously, if a unit has more distinguished members, then obviously that unit sets it up for more opportunities. So that's the benefit, I would say.
That leads to an opposing viewpoint of, is there a fear that having dedicated groups of members subdivided into units like this would create some sort of like a segregation where they only deal with themselves, or they get some sort of like, I don't even know how to describe it, like segmented from Imperium.
Secular groups.
You know.
So if you guys don't mind, I'd like to take this.
Go for it.
You love the Atlantic issue.
So one of the key differences between this new unit system when we were creating it and the old things that we were using is we put we wrote a lot more rules. And to be frank, we wrote a lot more rules and regulations in place for the specific responsibilities of the unit administrators, the people that are running it. And so part of the responsibility of that unit administrator is to communicate to, and the assistant unit administrator currently, is to communicate how units are integrated, get their members to understand how the units function within Imperium. Obviously, it's going to be human nature for bubbles to form. As people get comfortable, you're going to want to always hang out with your core group of friends, and obviously, excuse me, with our medium that we're using, PCs, there's a ton of options for different ways to communicate, and some people may want to, they don't want to hop on TeamSpeak and, have to lock a channel for their unit and blah, 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 blah. And that's totally understandable, but it's still something to where it's going to be good for the unit and for the for Imperium if that unit administrator can facilitate them integrating in. And we've put that responsibility not on the unit as a whole, but really on the responsibility falls to the people that are managing it. And, and if we feel like there's a bubble or something forming, or whatever, which is naturally going to happen, then we at least have that communication bridge there to where we can explain where we're coming from as an org and hopefully work with the unit to try to get them kind of back in. You know what I mean?
It is part of our responsibility to make sure that once we notice that there is a bubble forming or a group moving away, or just something where we notice that those members aren't hanging around RTS as much anymore, we will try our best to reintegrate or try to facilitate the reintegration back into the fold as a whole. That is the idea behind it. However, there is something that the people who might not realize that it's happening should watch out for, is that if a conflict erupts and that group isn't particularly integrated anymore, it is very likely that those members will also not feel like they're a part of Imperium anymore. And you get the animosity that really quickly builds up and explodes. We've had this so many times before. Yep. If you limit yourself to just your unit and don't look outside it, then that's bound to happen, and there's very little we can do about it. Unfortunately,
and this is probably one of the touchier subjects of units in general, but I think it's great that we're talking about it. A couple more points on this particular topic is one. Just lost my train of thought. However, I did remember one of them. Juntao, I know
a bunch of points.
Yeah, I know, Juntao. You being in diplomacy, right? I know, a lot of orgs have their own idea of how to do this, right? And I'm sure you've heard horror stories of this kind of thing breaking orgs apart, and causing huge issues. And so, and to be frank though, we've had a ton of issues in the past with it. A ton. We've had mutinies and blah 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 blah. Fragmentations and all that kind of stuff.
I hated Dubsams.
Did you really?
He hated you.
Yeah, I hate him. Actually, we have crossed swords in the forums in the past because of the recruitment cap, I think.
Yeah, exactly, right? And it probably affected your unit particularly, and you're like, fuck this guy.
No, it didn't affect me. It will affect your unit.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So, the other point, too, and this kind of falls more back to Arcanus and operations, is something to consider in terms of logistics and those fragmentations that can form, especially if they use other forms of medium for communication, is now you start to complicate the process of, in the future, where we have this unit that is super great, they are integrated, right? They participate on the forums and blah, 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 blah. But then all of a sudden, they just like to use their own thing, and then we're trying to run a mission, and 3/4 of the mission is all on our, Imperium's TeamSpeak, and then maybe that unit is not on it. They're somewhere else. So then it just kind of causes a logistic nightmare with that communication gap, to where that could cause some missions to maybe not go as well, So that's just kind of another aspect, and I don't know if we may want to edit this out. I don't know, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it anyways. It's I know some units may feel like we're, based off of this conversation, that we're kind of pointing at you, or this topic is really about you. But this is something that we want to make every unit understand.
Wait.
So,
Before you continue, if you're one of those units that feels like we are directly communicating
Or
to
stepping
you right
on
now,
stepping on you, that's not our goal.
we're not. But the fact that you feel that way means you need to contact the USS and explain to us why the fuck you feel that way so that we can help you through it.
To
Because
understand what's the issue.
And,
Yeah.
and then we get right back to the very beginning of the conversation is what and why is the USS a thing? And right there is one of the main reasons why I would think we would need people to facilitate a good communication platform between what Imperium as a whole thinks is necessary and what individual units think is necessary.
Of course. And there may be situations as well, like where maybe the ultimate goal of the USS is obviously for them to build relationships with the units where that unit feels very comfortable talking to them.
Hit them all.
We still, right now, the USS is still in a very early state. We're in like the fetal state still, I would say.
Are we going to call it an alpha? Please. let's
We're
call
in the
it-
alpha
we're in the
state
alpha
of
state.
USS, right?
As long as it's not pre-alpha.
But all the other officers in Imperium are aware of how it works and everything. To where if you feel maybe you don't feel comfortable with that USS, a particular USS member, or just maybe the USS in general, you still have the ability to talk to any number of officers or subcommanders and let them know how you feel. Now, the officers in that hierarchy still respect the hierarchy that is formed, so generally they may use that as a teaching opportunity to the USS to try to help them further get better. I don't know. I probably just tried to tell Core what he's supposed to do, so I don't know. I'm going to shut up now.
What, Core?
well, no. I just trying to make myself smaller so that people don't.
Start PMing the shit out of you.
Yeah, they can still escalate us if they are not
Well,
happy how to handle the
now you're
situation.
operating under the assumption that people actually want to talk to Core.
Oh no!
No,
Trust me,
no,
they
no
don't.
one wants to do that.
So
Don't do that.
let me ask James.
They get stuck in a 3-hour conversation about controllers.
How often do you find yourself needing to interject yourself into another unit's, I don't want to say business, but for lack of a better term, like what they're working on? How often do you find yourself needing to go in there and give guidance?
Currently, as the grandfathered units where we're from the squadron system,
Well, explain grandfathered units. What does that mean?
Legacy
you wanna
is
go
the better
there.
word.
Legacy units? The ones that existed prior to the unit
There
system
was
being revamped.
Yeah, they were in the squadron system. They were under the corps system, and they been under the unit manual version 1. Still, these people or these units have some process in place, have their own understanding of things. They had internal hierarchy. And in some cases, they had even a diplomacy persons, focal
Or
points, I
intel
would say. Yeah, or intel people. Yeah, that can happen, yes. The thing is that all that stuff is unnecessary in most cases for a part of 30 people. Okay, you don't need so many distinguished roles, let's say in a MMO raid. You have 2 or 3 roles, and that's it. You have the leaders, and maybe some, actually, yeah, you usually have a leader or 2 raid leaders, and that's it. And I forgot the question. So, the thing is that when you have a unit that either has its own ideas about how they should run things, the first thing is for them to consider if what they are thinking of has already been done, tested, succeed or failed. And in that case, how that can be incorporated to the Imperium structure. Because, okay, you could want to have a system, a banking system, or an insurance system for your people. In an essence, you are wanting to facilitate their day-to-day needs in the game without be overbearing and help them to evolve into that. But there is 2 points, two issues. First, if that system works with Imperium or oversteps Imperium, and secondly, you have to handle money. And in most cases, if you have to handle money that doesn't be necessary came from you and are from other people, there could be actually a real big issue
Sure.
in respect. Okay, I'm stopping the game. I'm bored, and I don't want to communicate with anyone else, and just stop. And I have a full bank there stuck in my account. No one has access
to put it in other words, try to avoid situations where you're handling other people's money.
Yeah,
because a unit as a whole can have a community pool. I don't want to promote this, but you're allowed as a group of people to throw money together and use it for something. Problem is, they're usually, who you would look to in that case, might be your unit leader to handle that. However, your unit leader might have some very different ideas about how he's going to use that money from you. So, we don't... What? You want to...
No, nothing. Go.
Okay, speak up. I didn't hear you.
Okay, to the old Nighthawks, please put some money. I need to buy Endeavor. That's it.
What I'm saying is there should never be an instance where you as an individual are asked by your unit leader for your money. If that situation does happen, remember that it is a transaction between two individuals and not between a Imperium member and a unit leader. And the reason why I say that specifically is once that transaction happens and you hand this person all your money, which again, when you hear me say it, you should hear the craziness behind it. It is very likely that that person might do something to that or run off with it, regardless of whether or not they were a unit leader or not a unit leader or a second in command, whatever. Imperium as a whole will never ask you for money, so your unit leader shouldn't have to ask you for money. If you guys come up with an idea to put something together to buy something, make sure you at least trust that person somewhat. Otherwise, you'll just be another case on HR's doorstep.
How are you sure you are going to say Imperium as a whole will not ask you for money? Because that will erupt the taxation system.
Well, he means like real life money.
We like me as an individual, right?
Yeah, of course.
In 99% of all cases, will not ask another Imperium member to give me their money.
That's it.
No, well, here's the thing. That's why I'm saying Imperium as a whole will not ask you for money in the sense that if Arcanus suddenly came up to you and went, I want all your money because we need it for a project for Imperium, immediately you should have a warning bell go off and you contact someone else in leadership to go.
Me.
Yeah, but that's my thing. That's what I'm trying to say.
I would never do that, but yes, okay.
No, but everyone should know this, and I'm not trying to start a problem. We might want to cut all this out, but never just hand over your money unless it is verified that it is going to somewhere and it's a concerted Imperium effort. The reason why I'm saying this is if a unit leader asks for money, it's not because Imperium told him that he could ask you for money.
Now, to elaborate that on even further, again, Arcanus, you may want to step in now.
Okay.
For money?
I know,
Ask
right?
him for money.
So basically,
Okay,
however, looking at this particular topic as an org-wide thing, right? Is we still don't know what kind of tools SIG is going to put in place and give us as an org the ability to incentivize our member base through our plans of the mission system. Let alone if SIG is going to have their own mission system that will have those tools in place. I think recently, I forget where I posted it. It's lost in my brain somewhere now, but like I think it's on like the escorting thread and people were talking about it and how, well, I don't think we're going to need escorting because it may not be a viable financial option, we may not be able to afford it. And then something like one of the main steads of that's probably the wrong one to use for our org is we want to always incentivize our members to work as a team for the betterment of the org. And so, in regard to the mission system, and Arcanus is probably where you want to step in, is, we don't know what kind of things we're going to have where maybe we can incentivize, wealth or whatever to where we can help with, payments or mission payouts based off of the org's financial status and that kind of thing as well. So.
Well, and you're correct, because that's been one of the biggest obstacles for operations as far as working, together and working with the tech department and working with Fleet Command in terms of building the mission system is that we don't really know at this point yet what tools SIG will put in place for us, and we don't want to create kind of like a duplication of effort, because that would be destructive to our productivity. So yeah,
but in theory, and I know everybody hates that word. At least I do. I hate that word. But
especially when you use it wrong.
Yeah, but did I use it wrong
right.
just now?
No, but you're right though. But Dupe is right. I mean, the idea is that we want to try and get Imperium units and just Imperium members as a whole to work together to achieve our common goals. That is part of our strength. One of the things that I always have felt sets Imperium apart from every other org, whether it's a smaller org or even some of the bigger orgs, is that we are more organized and we are more focused on teamwork than, and like I said, this is just my perception. Maybe Juntao can speak to this better, as someone in diplomacy who's met more other units, but that we are more orgs. Yeah, sorry. That we are more focused on working together and organizing together to achieve our common goals.
Yeah, you kind of never answered when I said, like, what did you kind of see out in diplomacy? I don't know if that's like infosec, like info that you can't talk about, obviously, but maybe on a broad spectrum, you can kind of see like personal experiences in diplomacy, like what.
Juntao hates talking to other orgs. He doesn't like doing that.
I will just say this: it's no secret that we have been approached and have serious discussions with other organizations wanting to know how and why we set things up the way that we do. And we have actually shared our structure with other very large organizations that want to mirror the hierarchy of how we're building this organization, because on paper, it looks really good.
That's how we get. That's one of the main selling points for people to join our org. Truthfully,
right. So there are organizations that look at us like we're the know-it-alls, or I don't even know how to phrase it. That we're snobs or whatever. But we're just. What is it? We just want to be extremely fucking organized,
and we're extremely passionate
right from the beginning, so that once the game launches, we don't have to deal with all the shit we've been dealing with for the last few years. So everything's iterative, and we've been working on everything a little bit at a time to make it so that once the game launches, people can just play. And that's the goal. Because I know I don't want to have my game time interrupted as much as my real life has been interrupted up until this point.
What real life?
I mean, seriously though, core is the same. Everybody's the same way. We need to get all of these things in place and figured out to the best of our ability with the best information that we have available to just make it work.
I have a good analogy as well. Like I have an accounting degree, and my mom is an accountant, and one of the analogies she uses to describe that particular field and industry is that the hardest accounting you'll ever do is in school. And then once you get into the workplace, it's all automated, and you're just using the tools in place within the industry, but you have that back-end understanding. That's where Imperium's at. We're in school right now, and we're learning about our org, and we're building the org in the best way possible to where when the game launches, hopefully if our plans come to fruition, quote, that's also used wrong, whatever, that everything is going to be automated. Nobody will even notice the pains and tribulations that we went through, and that everything will hopefully try to run as smooth as possible, and we can focus on just enjoying the game and being successful.
But let me answer the question directly anyway. From my experience, and I've had discussions with entirely too many organizations. It's ridiculous, right? We are like I said,
Juntao doesn't really like other orgs.
Well, we are absolutely the most structured organization, and that's not for everybody. You know that. We all know that. Everybody looks for something different in an organization. People look at us and go, there's just too much structure to it, and they think it's confining, so they're not going to come here, and that's fine, right? But the whole goal is to be structured. So everybody knows what needs to be done. Everybody just does their job, if you will, and it just flows. And we can, if the tools are implemented the way that we think they're going to be, everybody's going to have fun. Everybody's going to make credits. The organization is going to make credits, and we're just going to have a good time.
The whole idea behind our structure was the idea that we would have a flexible way to form it, and it would remain flexible right up until the game launches. But at the same time, make sure that what we're throwing out there and the supports that we're building that foundation with were extremely strong at the same time. That is why we might not have 300 leaders that a bigger organization has, where 1/10 is an officer or a leader or whatever. I'm not saying that that's really how it is, but we have a very small, very I don't have the words.
Tightly knit.
Yeah, that'll work.
Well, if you think about the leadership structure of Imperium, it's really dedicated.
Yes.
And that's part of the deal, is if you would
Wanna
like
do it.
to do it, you have to want to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning,
9 o'clock on a Saturday.
9 o'clock on a Saturday.
Call into work 2 weeks ahead that you're going to be late.
And organize and think and talk and plan and all of these things, and there's some people that may want to do it, and there's a lot of people that are just like, psh.
You're a fucking nerd.
Right.
What are you doing with your time?
Well, my wife says that all the time. So.
Yeah, we never promote people just to fill a spot. We always do it at the times when we find individuals that we know will excel in the role, or just need to be given a chance, because half the time we're not sure about people. We give them the opportunity and they prove themselves over a matter of weeks. Some people we're still not sure about.
So I feel like we're stuck on this for a while, so I probably need to move on. But the final thing I will say
Q&A time. Sorry.
is that in regards to what Gentile said about us being snobs and that people feel encaged, I think that's honestly the true beauty. And I'm going to use beauty because we put a lot of thought into this, and I'm really passionate about the way that we're currently operating, and we continue to iterate on that process, is that if you look at it on the paper, you'll see a ton of words and regs and everything to where it looks like it's confining, but the actual system, if you understand it, is actually very open and is very, very flexible for players, to where you have a lot of options and you have a lot of things to do, and the system will actually promote that flexibility in an organized fashion.
When it came to a long time ago when I first joined, the idea behind a lot of the things that were in place was the idea that the individual, the member, had freedom to do what they wanted, but with somewhat of a common goal that was Imperium. And I believe that we've tried to maintain those ideals as we have constantly molded what appears to have been an extremely giant lump into the finer statue that Imperium has now become. It's just the mindset of always remembering that if you join as a new member, it shouldn't just feel overwhelming into what you've joined. It should also give you the motivation, or at least the excitement, to think there is so much to do, there's so much I can go, there are units I can join, there's a mission system I can look at, and hopefully that sense of excitement is what will drive people to continue to look to our organization.
We hope the work doesn't go unnoticed, and that it's something that, there's a lot there for somebody to, maybe there's one particular part of Imperium that really, really excites them, and it's in-depth and deep enough to where they can pursue in that direction if that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so who's down for some Q&A?
We're already ready for Q&A?
Bring it.
So this was